Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll learn to become a better, more business-savvy designer so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm talking about how you can make better web and print files, ones that are more user-friendly to the people reading them. Stick around to get tons of tips to make your PDF and print files more user-friendly. So many documents nowadays are printed and emailed or posted to a website. So you should just work from a single layout file and then export PDFs in 2 different resolutions, or export a low-res PDF for the web and package up your InDesign files, right? Nope. Even though you're only working with one source file for the page layout, there are tweaks that you can make for a better experience for readers. If you're exporting your layout files to PDF format for print and for the web thinking the only difference is the resolution, you're really missing out on providing a better experience for readers and a higher value to your clients. You're missing out on a chance to really showcase your expertise by considering the user experience for your documents. First off, you've got to ask clients how the end file will be published or distributed. It could be only for print, or it may also be distributed online, on their website, or via email. Understanding how it will be published means you'll give the client files with the intended purpose, meaning a print quality PDF and a low-res PDF. If you use PDF format for both, it's a good idea to always differentiate the 2 files. I put print and web at the end of the file name so the client can tell them apart. That helps prevent them from posting a print file for download on their website. And you wouldn't believe how many times I've encountered that. Worse, they could otherwise email the print file out to their mailing list, drop marks and all. I've seen that too. The other thing to find out is if the document needs to be accessible, as in accessible to people with a disability. Now, I get this work all the time, but every now and then a client might have this requirement and forget to bring it up. It happened recently to a colleague of mine after the job was completed. I'll get into accessibility more in a bit. Something else to think about is the document setup, like if you've got pages versus spreads. Let's say you've got a letterfold, aka trifold brochure, that you set up at the flat size in your page layout program. The flat size being the unfolded size, such as 11 by 8.5 inches. And maybe you've got guides set up for the 3 pages on each side of the sheet. So you've got 2 pages that are 11 by 8.5 by 11. Okay, that's fine for print, but what happens if you export that file as is for someone to read online? Could you do that? Sure. But if you just export it to PDF at lower resolution for the web and you do nothing else, the pages will be out of order because the first page, the cover, is on the far right of the first page of the PDF. The inside spread, which is 3 pages, are page 2 of the PDF. And then the last 2 pages are back on page 1 of the PDF, the fold-in panel and the back cover. So you've got 2 pages in the PDF and all the pages are in the wrong order, because the document is being shown in spreads. What you can do instead is after you export that document to PDF, make a copy of it, and then open the original PDF in Acrobat and import that copy. Put it after the last page of the PDF. Then delete the page that you just imported that has the duplicate inside spread. So now you should have 3 pages in your PDF. Page 1 showing a spread of the fold-in panel, back cover, and front cover, a second page showing the inside spread, and then a duplicate of page 1. Next, you want to crop the first page of the PDF to only show the front cover, and then crop the last page to show all except the front cover. What you should end up with are the cover only, and the full inside spread, and then the fold-in page plus the back cover on single page by itself. So that's 3 pages. Anytime you have something set up in spreads, you can use this process and crop and reorder the pages if needed in the PDF. Now, when someone reads the PDF, they will see the content in the proper order, the way they would see it in print. Incorporating interactivity is also helpful in a PDF meant for the web or for email. And many designers don't take advantage of these features. One thing that's very helpful is to have a clickable table of contents in the PDF. If the document has a page with a table of contents on it, you want each entry to be hyperlinked so people can click on it and get around easily. In print, we can flip through to a certain section, so this is like akin to doing just that, but for the PDF. For more on creating a clickable table of contents, see podcast episode 98, which is 6 reasons to use InDesign's automated table of contents. Now, if your document has hyperlinks, you can treat them differently in a digital document and print file to make them more user-friendly. With the digital document, the low-res PDF, you want those hyperlinks to be clickable. Hyperlinks make it easy for readers of the digital file to get more information. You might also have text anchors that take the reader to another part of the document. But you don't want print readers to see a bunch of styled hyperlinks because they obviously can't click on anything. So after the client has approved the final proof, or the final proof, what you can do is export to the low-res PDF for the web with all the hyperlink styling intact. Then save a copy of your layout file and add web or online or, whatever you want to the file name. You don't want to duplicate the InDesign file too early in the process, though, because the client will surely have more edits, and suddenly you're having to make edits in 2 files, and that's not fun. So then in the copy of that file, you'll remove the styling from all hyperlinks. And if you've used a character style for this, that won't take long. If you're not going to do this next part, you don't actually need to maintain 2 files. But what you can also do, again, I recommend doing this in a copy of the file, is add the URLs for the hyperlinks in parentheses after where they were hyperlinked. Of course, that will cause text reflow and possibly page count changes. But this is something you could plan for in the beginning, though, with a bigger bottom margin, for example. Now, alternatively, you could add URLs as footnotes, and those will take up less room. Whichever method you choose, though, you're enabling the print reader to get the same additional information that people reading the interactive PDF are getting. Bookmarks are another way to help readers of a digital document, especially if it's a long one. In Acrobat, the bookmarks appear in the Bookmarks panel as hyperlinks. They help a reader go to the front cover, the front matter, table of contents, or other sections of a document with just one click. You can create them in InDesign using the table of contents feature and checking the Create PDF Bookmarks option, or you can add them in Acrobat. I recommend you set them to always show when someone opens the document. You can do this by going to the PDF and then Command-D on Mac or Control-D on Windows, and then Initial View and set the navigation tab to Bookmarks Panel and Page. You might say, oh, but that takes up quite a bit of screen space. Well, you can adjust the width of the panel. If readers don't want to see the bookmarks, they can close the Bookmarks panel, but far fewer people seem to know how to look for them in the first place and see if they were even included, so it's better to have them open automatically. Plus, it helps with the accessibility of a PDF. To have the interactive functionality like that, you need to export from InDesign with the right profile. If you export using the interactive setting, the bookmarks will appear in the PDF. If you use the print setting, I don't know why you would though, you'd have to check the option to include bookmarks. Now, resolution is obviously a factor with both types of PDFs. For print, you want your file, your raster images specifically, to be at 266 ppi or higher, or 300 generally speaking. And this will ensure that those images look crisp. But for a PDF that will be viewed online, you can go with much less, say 72 or even 144 ppi. So if somebody is using a high-res display such as a Retina display, the images will look crisp and not pixelated. And of course, with higher resolution comes a larger file size. These days, luckily, we don't have to worry about huge print file sizes because we have so many high-capacity file transfer options, in the cloud and via FTP. But back in the day, I would have to burn to multiple CDs, and yeah, that's what they called it, for each magazine issue that I worked on, and then I would have to overnight them to the printer. But I digress. If the PDF will be posted to a website and downloaded from there, you want the file size to be as small as possible without sacrificing image quality. A good user experience means it won't take a long time to download the file. When you export using the PDF interactive setting, you can change the resolution settings there if you need to. And if the file, not the link, will be emailed, then it's even more important to have the smallest file size possible. And by the way, I don't recommend that anyone do that. You want to ask clients how the file will be distributed, as I mentioned, but then advise them that it's better to send a hyperlink in an email instead of as an attachment. Some people's email servers might reject a file that's too big, or it might end up in a junk folder. And clients may not be able to send it in the first place if it's too big. Okay, so I mentioned accessibility earlier. I've done several podcast episodes about accessible design and documents. You can check out those episodes at creative-boost.com/podcast and then select the accessibility category. But what I want to get into is designers who create accessible files often focus on accessibility with digital documents. But even if the document will only be printed, there are things that you can do to make the end result more accessible, even though it's not interactive. For instance, you can still adhere to the WCAG contrast guidelines and make sure that color isn't being used to convey meaning anywhere in the document. You can also incorporate good design and usability practices, if you haven't done so already, such as sufficient use of white space, space between sections like above headings, and appropriate colors, typefaces, and text size for the audience. And consider this. If the document needs to be accessible and will be printed and distributed online, don't ignore accessibility with the print file and only address it with the digital file later. You could end up having to modify the design for the digital file to be accessible, so you could end up with two different looking documents. I see this all the time, actually. This is one reason why designers should incorporate accessibility into the design process, not address it at the end of the line. Accessible design is not only good for the end user, it's good for business, your clients and yours. You'll actually eliminate 99% of your competition with this skill because most designers are ignoring accessibility. Whether you do branding and logo design work, publication design, general graphic design, or even web design, if you're interested in an accessible design course, go to creative-boost.com/courses.